I don't know why, but that morning, something felt off. The air was still. Too still. Like the world was holding its breath. That's how it began. Not with a scream, not with sirens. Just silence. A silence that wrapped around me so tightly I could barely breathe. My name is Sarah, and what I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. Maybe it'll change yours too. It was an ordinary Wednesday. The sun rose like it always did. My little girl, Emily, was humming in the kitchen, sitting on the floor in her favorite pajamas, the ones with tiny stars that glowed in the dark. She was 5, curious, lively, the kind of child who asked questions that made grown-ups stop and think. She had this way of looking at you, like she saw more than just your face, like she saw your soul. That morning, she asked something strange. "Mommy, do you think heaven is soft?" I paused. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" She shrugged. "I don't know. I had a dream last night. There were angels. They were whispering." I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. By 11:42 a.m., Emily was gone. It was a freak accident. No one could explain it. One moment, she was playing by the window. The next, she wasn't breathing. No warning. No time. Just gone. And I died that day too. Not physically, but something inside me broke in a way that can never be repaired. The world kept moving. People kept talking. But I was frozen in that moment, staring at the paramedics, begging them to save her, to bring her back. I remember the sound of my own scream. I didn't even recognize it. It was raw, animal, a sound born from the deepest place of human agony. I don't remember the funeral. I don't remember the days that followed. What I do remember is the silence, the unbearable, all-consuming silence. Her room untouched, her toys still lined up in that perfect, chaotic way only children understand, her smell still lingering on her pillow. I would go in and sit there, just to feel closer to her. And then came the dreams. At first, I thought they were just echoes of my grief, but they grew stronger, clearer. Emily standing in fields of light, her voice more real than anything I'd ever heard in waking life. She began to speak of things I couldn't explain, people I'd never met, names I didn't know. And then, she spoke of him, of Jesus. She said, "Mommy, he holds my hand when you cry." I wept for hours after that one. I started writing down everything, every word, every dream. It was the only thing keeping me alive. And then one night, she didn't come alone. There was something different in the air, electric, like the room was vibrating even though nothing moved. I saw her, clearer than ever, and she was afraid. She said, "I have to tell you something. It's about what's coming. And it's about Trump." I froze. My daughter never heard of politics. We never spoke of presidents. But the way she said his name, it wasn't about politics. It was about something much bigger, much darker. And then, the light behind her grew until it filled the room. And from within that light, he stepped forward. I don't have words to explain what I saw next, but I'll try. Because what Jesus revealed in that moment wasn't just about one man. It was about all of us. And that is where this story truly begins. They say there are no words for the pain of losing a child. They're right, but I'm going to try, because you need to understand what that day did to me, how it tore a hole through my soul so wide. Even God himself would later have to fill it with something holy. Emily was my miracle. She wasn't supposed to be born. I was told I couldn't have children. Years of tears, of prayers whispered into pillows, of baby shoes bought and hidden away. And then, one morning, 2 lines on a test changed everything. So when I held her in my arms for the first time, it felt like heaven had touched earth. She wasn't just mine. She was borrowed from the stars, and I knew it. Deep down, I knew she didn't belong entirely to me. That's why losing her felt like being robbed by God himself. It was just before noon on a quiet day in May. Emily had eaten her favorite breakfast, pancakes with too much syrup, and was watching a cartoon in the living room. I stepped out for a moment to answer a call in the hallway. I was gone for maybe 5 minutes. When I came back, she was lying there, still, unmoving, eyes half open. I screamed her name. I shook her, I begged her to breathe. I dialed 911 with trembling hands and tried everything I remembered from those CPR videos. But nothing worked. Time stopped. Reality shattered. The paramedics came and took over, but their eyes told me what their words didn't. One of them muttered, "She's already blue." I collapsed to the floor. The next few hours are just fragments in my memory. A hospital, nurses, a doctor with kind eyes telling me she was gone. My world folding in on itself. I remember throwing up in the hospital bathroom. I remember someone handing me a paper to sign. I remember screaming at God. Why? Why her? No answer. We buried her in a white casket, small enough to carry in one arm. I remember holding onto it with both hands, as if I could pull her out and take her home. I remember not wanting to walk away from the gravesite, as if turning my back would make it final. After that, life didn't just stop. It unspooled. Days lost meaning. I would wake up hoping it was all a dream, then cry when I remembered it wasn't. Her room stayed exactly as she left it. I couldn't bear to touch anything. Her tiny shoes stayed by the door. Her toothbrush was still in the cup. I stopped answering the phone, stopped eating, stopped talking. People tried to comfort me. "She's in a better place," they'd say. Or, "God needed another angel," but those words felt like knives. I didn't want her to be an angel. I wanted her to be 5. I wanted her here, with me. I stopped going to church. I stopped praying. I started questioning everything I ever believed about heaven, about love, about purpose. What kind of loving God would take a child from her mother? What kind of plan was this? For weeks, I wandered through my own home like a ghost. I began sleeping on the floor outside her bedroom door, just to be near her things. Just in case. Just in case this was all some twisted test and she might come back. Then, one night, something strange happened. I was lying on the floor, staring at the ceiling, when the room filled with warmth. Not heat, warmth. Like love, like presence, like being held from the inside out. I thought I was dreaming, but I wasn't asleep. And then I heard her voice. Mommy. Soft, clear, impossible. I sat up so fast I got dizzy. "Emily?" Silence. Then a whisper. "I'm okay. Please don't be sad anymore." I broke. I sobbed so hard I couldn't breathe, and even through the tears, I felt her. Not a memory, not a dream. Her. That was the first night she came back to me. That was the beginning of something I still don't understand fully. But I know this. Death didn't end our story. It just opened a door. And behind that door, something was waiting. Something holy. Something terrifying. Something divine. Before I go on, if this story has touched your heart even a little, I want to invite you to stay with me. You're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, what happened to me can help you heal too. Please subscribe, share, or leave a comment. Let's walk through this together. Because this is only the beginning. I don't know how to explain what happened next in any rational way. I only know that it was real. More real than anything I've ever seen with my own eyes. After Emily first spoke to me that night, everything changed. I began feeling her presence more often, not just in dreams, but in moments when I was wide awake. There would be a sudden warmth in the room, a scent of lavender that used to cling to her blanket, or a soft giggle echoing from the hallway when no one else was home. Then came the vision. It was early morning. I hadn't slept much. I had fallen into this strange, in-between state. Not quite dreaming, but not fully conscious either. That's when I saw it. A light, blinding at first, surrounded me, but it didn't hurt my eyes. It felt like being wrapped in the gentlest embrace, as if every ache in my soul was being soothed at once. I wasn't standing in my room anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere vast, peaceful, and utterly beautiful. The air shimmered with colors I can't describe, like rainbows made of emotion. And there was music, not with instruments, but like the very air was singing. It felt like love had a sound, and I was hearing it for the first time. Then I saw her, Emily. She was standing a few feet away from me, wearing a white dress that seemed to glow from within. Her face was calm, radiant. Her eyes sparkled like they used to when she found a new bug in the backyard. But this time, there was something else in them. Wisdom. Like she had lived 1,000 lifetimes since I'd last seen her. She ran toward me, and I dropped to my knees, arms wide open. When she reached me, I expected to hold her like I used to, but it was different. She passed through me, not like a ghost, but like light blending with light. And in that instant, I felt her soul. I felt everything. Her joy, her peace, her freedom. "Mommy," she said, her voice echoing in my mind more than in my ears. "I'm not gone. I just went home." I couldn't speak. I was crying, sobbing without sound, as she took my hand and led me forward. We walked through what looked like a garden, but it wasn't of this earth. Every flower shimmered. The ground felt alive. The trees bent slightly as we passed, like they were aware of our presence. I knew somehow that this place existed beyond time. Emily stopped beside a stream that sparkled like diamonds. "This is where I crossed," she said. I looked down and saw the water parting, revealing an image. Her final moments on Earth. She was alone in the living room, her little face suddenly still, her chest no longer rising. But in the vision, I also saw something else. A figure of light standing beside her. "Who is that?" I asked. "That's my angel," she replied. "He helped me cross over." Tears poured down my face. "Did it hurt?" She shook her head. "No. I just felt warm. I wasn't scared." He told me, "It's time to go home now. And then I saw you crying, and I wanted to stay." But he said, "You'll see her again." I dropped to my knees again, unable to contain the grief and awe mixing inside me. Then Emily knelt beside me and touched my cheek. "There's something I need to tell you," she whispered. "It's why I came back." I looked into her eyes, and they turned serious, far beyond her years. "There's a message about what's coming, about the world, and about someone very important." I held my breath. She continued, "He told me to say one word, Trump." My heart raced. "What do you mean? Who told you?" She looked past me, and her expression softened with reverence. "Jesus," she said. "He wants you to listen. He wants everyone to listen." I turned, expecting to see something, someone, but the light behind me grew brighter than anything I'd ever known, forcing me to cover my eyes. And in that light, he began to appear. There are no words, no language on earth that can truly describe what I saw next. From the center of that overwhelming light, a presence emerged. It wasn't sudden. It was as if he had always been there, hidden in the brilliance, waiting until I was ready to see. And when I did, everything in me changed. It was Jesus. Not the image I grew up with in paintings or stained glass windows. Not a man in robes or a crown of thorns. No, this Jesus was light itself, alive, powerful, endless. And yet, his eyes, they held such gentleness, such knowing. I couldn't look at him directly. The light around him pulsed with something I can only describe as love in its purest, most perfect form. It didn't just shine, it called to me, as if every cell in my body remembered him, even if my mind didn't. I fell to my knees, trembling, not from fear, but from awe, the kind of awe that makes your soul bow, even if your body can't. I felt Emily beside me, her tiny hand slipping into mine again. "Don't be afraid, Mommy," she said softly. "He loves you." And then he spoke, not with words, not with sound, but directly into my spirit. His voice was like a symphony of compassion, truth, and power, all at once. And when he said my name, it was like hearing it for the first time. "Sarah," he said, "you have carried great sorrow, but I have never left you, not for a single heartbeat." Tears flowed freely down my face. Every wound, every doubt, every cry I had screamed into the night. It was as if he had heard them all, held them all, and loved me through each one. "I let her come to you," he continued, "because you are ready now, ready to see, ready to hear." He looked down at Emily, who smiled up at him like they were old friends, like they had always known each other. "She is with me," he said, "safe, whole, alive." I wept. He reached out his hand. not just to comfort me, but to pour into me. I felt waves of warmth, of golden peace, flowing through my being. Every regret, every sleepless night, every silent scream melted in that moment. "She came back to you with a message," he said. "And so have I." My breath caught. This wasn't just about Emily. This wasn't just about me. He showed me images of people, of places, of events yet to come. I saw chaos, but also hope. I saw leaders rise and fall. I saw crowds searching the skies. And then I heard one word again: Trump. I didn't understand. Was it political? Was it symbolic? My mind couldn't grasp it, but my heart knew this. It was important, urgent. Not a message of division, but of preparation. "Do not be afraid," Jesus said, reading the fear rising in me. "This is not a warning of destruction, but a call to awaken. The world is shifting, and many hearts are asleep." He looked into me, through me. I felt my life flash before my eyes, but not with judgment, with love, with understanding. Every mistake, every failure, seen and still loved. "You are not alone," he said. "You never have been." Then, turning toward Emily, he smiled. "You have done well, little one." She beamed with pride and looked at me. "I told you, Mommy. He holds my hand when you cry." I broke, fully. I sobbed like I never had before. Not from sorrow this time, but from release. From the absolute knowing that I was seen, known, and loved beyond comprehension. Jesus knelt before me, his presence wrapping around both of us. "When you return," he said, "you must speak. You must share. There are many who need to hear. Many who are still lost in their pain." I nodded through the tears. "But how will I know what to say?" I asked. His reply was simple, and yet it shook the foundations of who I thought I was. "Speak from your healing. That is enough." And just like that, the light began to fade. Emily kissed my cheek. Her voice echoed one last time. "Remember, Mommy, love never dies." And I was pulled back, into the body I had almost forgotten, into a world that suddenly felt both darker and brighter than before. I woke up gasping, like I had been underwater too long, and finally broke the surface. My chest rose and fell with rapid breaths, heart pounding as if trying to remind me that I was alive. But everything had changed. My body was here, but my soul had touched something far beyond this world. And with that return came a burden, a message that pressed against my heart like a fire that refused to be extinguished. Emily's voice echoed in my mind. "It's about what's coming, and it's about Trump." I sat in silence for a long time, replaying every word, every image. I wasn't a political person. I didn't follow the news. But this wasn't about sides. It wasn't about red or blue. It was something deeper, spiritual, cosmic, urgent. In the vision, I had seen flashes, scenes that made no sense at the time but now haunted me. I saw crowds of people shouting, not in unity, but in chaos. I saw fires, not just physical, but emotional and spiritual, raging across families, cities, hearts. I saw confusion wearing the mask of truth. And then I saw Trump, standing alone, then surrounded by shadows, then suddenly in light. The light didn't come from him, it came for him. And behind that light, the face of Jesus. Watching, not judging, not condemning, but waiting. There was no message of condemnation, no attack, no endorsement, just a name and a call to attention. And somehow I understood. The message wasn't about Trump, it was about us. About the hearts of people clinging to fear, to anger, to division. I felt it so clearly. This wasn't a prophecy of doom. It was a plea, a divine urging for humanity to wake up, to see beyond appearances, to stop deifying or demonizing men and start looking inward. Because the storm wasn't coming from politics. It was coming from within us. Later that day, as I sat staring out the window where Emily used to draw rainbows with washable markers, I felt her presence again. She whispered, "You have to tell them." "Tell them what?" I asked. "That love isn't loud, but it's stronger than all the shouting." I closed my eyes and let the tears fall again. How had my 5-year-old come back from death with more wisdom than I had gathered in all my years? She continued, "People are forgetting how to see. They're afraid, so they're choosing sides instead of choosing peace." Then, in the softest voice, she added, "He said hearts will harden if no one speaks." Ah, that was when I knew. This wasn't just my story to carry in silence. This was a message meant to be shared, with anyone willing to listen. It wasn't about who you voted for. It wasn't about changing your beliefs. It was about returning to what we're meant to be: children of light, people of love, souls capable of healing, even after the worst kind of loss. So I started writing, and now I'm speaking. Not because I have answers, but because I've seen enough to know the questions we're asking aren't the right ones. The question isn't, whose side are you on? The question is, where is your heart rooted? Is it fear, or is it love? I don't claim to be a prophet. I'm just a grieving mother who died a little and came back with a story that won't let me stay silent. Jesus didn't speak of political power. He spoke of awakening, of remembering who we are, of choosing compassion in a world drowning in noise. And Trump was simply the name used to wake us up, to startle the sleepers, to shake the foundations. It could have been any name, but it was that one. And so, I share it, not to spark debate, but to stir souls. If you've made it this far, maybe it's because your soul too is stirring. Maybe you've been asking questions in the dark, crying in secret, wishing someone would just tell you that love is still real, that hope isn't dead. This is me telling you, it's real. It never left. Emily came back with light in her eyes and a message on her lips. And that message was never about fear. It was about returning, about remembering, about choosing love. There's something unshakable about hearing a voice that bypasses your ears and speaks directly to your soul. That's how it was with Jesus. Even now, back in my ordinary life with its ordinary routines, grocery lists, traffic, unanswered texts, I carry his voice inside me. It doesn't fade like a memory. It echoes constantly, like a soft vibration within my chest, calling me back to stillness, to truth, to love. After the vision, there were days I felt like I was living in two realities at once. I'd be folding laundry or pouring coffee and suddenly hear his words, not as sound, but as presence. He never shouted. His voice was never harsh, but it was firm, and it reached the deepest, most broken places inside of me. "Tell them," he would say. "Tell them I am not far. I never was." The first few times I thought I was going crazy. I questioned everything. Was this grief? A hallucination? My desperate mind creating comfort? But then he said something that silenced all doubt. Truth doesn't shout. It remains. And it did. I started hearing him more often, especially during moments of stillness, right before sleep, or in the silence of early morning. And sometimes, when I was in the middle of tears, when the ache for Emily came crashing down again, I'd feel his presence so strongly, it would stop me mid-sob. "Your sorrow is sacred," he told me once, "but don't let it become your home." That hit me hard, because that's exactly what I had done. I had built a house out of pain, decorated it with memories, locked the doors with guilt. And Jesus, he wasn't asking me to forget my daughter. He was asking me to carry her love, not her death. One morning I asked aloud, "Why me? Why choose me for this? I'm not holy. I'm not strong." His answer was immediate. "Because you broke. And in the breaking, your heart became wide enough to hear me." I couldn't argue with that. My grief had stripped me down to nothing. No pride, no pretense, just raw ache and open wounds. And somehow, in that emptiness, his voice filled me. He began showing me things, not visions like before. No fire or politics or chaos, but glimpses of people. An old man sitting alone at a window. A young mother rocking her baby, crying quietly. A boy staring at the sky, whispering a name. All of them carrying invisible pain. All of them searching. "They are mine," he said, "and they don't know it yet." I felt his sorrow in that. Not anger, never anger, but this deep, holy ache for humanity. For our blindness, for how easily we forget we are loved. Then he said something I will never forget. The world does not need more noise, it needs witnesses. Witnesses. People who've seen what love can do. People who've walked through fire and came out with light. People who don't have perfect answers but have presence, truth, love. That's when I knew this story wasn't just for healing my own soul. It was a call, an invitation. He wasn't asking me to preach. He wasn't asking me to convince anyone of anything. He was asking me to share, because someone, somewhere, is praying for proof, crying for a sign, sitting in the same silence I once sat in, begging for the impossible. And maybe this is their answer. Jesus didn't give me a message of rules or rituals. He didn't speak of denominations or doctrines. He spoke of hearts. He spoke of love. Remind them, he said. They are not forgotten. So that's what I'm doing. To whoever you are, grieving parent, lonely soul, silent sufferer, you're not forgotten. You're not alone. I know what it's like to scream into your pillow, to hold an empty space at the dinner table, to ache without words. I know what it's like to question everything, but I also know what it's like to be held by love himself. He is real, and his voice is still speaking. All you have to do is listen. Coming back was the hardest part, not the return itself. I don't remember the exact moment I re-entered my body. One moment I was with Emily and Jesus, bathed in light and truth, and the next I was gasping awake in my bed, soaked in tears, heart racing, lungs desperate for air. But it wasn't just my breath that had changed. Everything had. The world felt heavier, louder, dimmer. Colors weren't as vibrant. Food tasted dull. Time moved strangely, too fast and too slow at once. I remember looking at my hands and wondering how they could feel so foreign, like I'd been gone for years, even though only one night had passed. But the biggest shift was internal. I couldn't look at people the same way. I began seeing the pain they carried in their eyes. Even when they smiled, I felt it. In grocery stores, on sidewalks, through texts and phone calls. A deep spiritual loneliness in others that I had once believed was mine alone. Only now I knew the truth. We're never really alone. I'd seen what waited on the other side. I had touched it, felt it, been filled by it. And even though the pain of missing Emily remained, it was no longer the end of me. It was the beginning of something sacred. Still, I struggled. I didn't know how to live in the normal world anymore. People talked about traffic, politics, celebrities, and I wanted to shout, "None of that matters. Don't you know what's really real?" But of course I didn't shout. I smiled politely. I nodded. I let them talk. And I watched. Because I wasn't sent back to argue. I was sent back to be. To carry that peace I had touched. To be a living reminder that the veil between this world and the next is thinner than we think. That love doesn't end at the grave. That grief, as brutal as it is, can become the doorway to something divine. And so, slowly, I began to live again. Not just survive. I cleaned Emily's room, not to erase her, but to honor her. I kept her favorite toy bunny on the shelf by my bed. I lit a candle every night and whispered, "I love you, always." I started walking outside more, feeling the wind, watching the birds. I saw signs in everything. A feather on the porch, a butterfly that lingered too long, a dream that echoed real life. Were they coincidences? Maybe. But to a grieving mother who had touched heaven, nothing felt accidental anymore. And then there was the calling, that burning sense of purpose that wouldn't go away. Jesus had said, "You must speak, you must share." And though I was terrified of judgment, of disbelief, of being seen, I began writing. At first, just in a journal. Then, little by little, I began speaking out loud, recording my voice, sharing my story with one trusted friend, then another. And with every telling, something powerful happened. People cried. People opened up. People whispered. I thought I was the only one. And that's when I realized I wasn't sent back for me. I was sent back for you. For the mother holding her child's shirt to her face because it still smells like them. For the father who pretends to be strong but breaks down behind the wheel. For the widow staring at the empty chair across the table. For the son who never got to say goodbye. I see you. I've been where you are. And I promise you, there is more. There is life beyond this one. There is love that doesn't die. There is peace that passes understanding. And there is a presence who knows you by name. I don't have all the answers, but I have this story. And if it helps just one person feel less alone, then every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of terror was worth it. Before I go on, if you felt something in your heart while listening, if you've seen yourself in my story, I want to invite you to stay with me. Subscribe, comment, share. This isn't just a video. This is a community, a place where healing begins. You are not alone. Let's keep walking together. People often ask, how do you go back to normal after something like that? The answer is simple. You don't. There's no such thing as normal after you've met eternity. After you've seen your child in the arms of Jesus. After you've felt love so pure, so infinite, it rewrites every definition you've ever known. Of faith, of truth, of yourself. You come back different. Not perfect. Not untouchable. But awake. That's what changed most after my near-death experience. I woke up, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally. I began seeing the world through new eyes. Before, I was consumed by fear of loss, of pain, of death. I clung to control because I believed it could protect me. And then I lost Emily. The worst happened, and I still survived. No, more than survived. I transformed. The love I experienced on the other side wasn't a temporary comfort. It was a permanent change. It wasn't something I visited. It became part of me. And because of that, everything else shifted. My faith changed. It was no longer a checklist or a Sunday routine. It became a living, breathing relationship. Not with religion, but with presence. With God. With Jesus, who didn't give me rules, but who held me. Who knew me, even in my brokenness. I stopped trying to prove myself to anyone. I stopped carrying guilt like a badge. The shame that used to live in my chest dissolved in that moment. I realized He loved me before I healed. He loved me when I was angry, bitter, lost. And now, I carry that love wherever I go. There are days I still cry. Grief isn't linear. Sometimes a song, a smell, or a photo can still break me in half. But even in those moments, there's a sacred thread pulling me back to center. A quiet reminder that Emily isn't gone. She's ahead. She's in the light, not lost to it. And because of what I saw, I live with the deep, unshakable knowledge that love connects us beyond this realm. Death may have taken her breath, but it could never take her presence. And so I began living with intention. I stopped postponing joy. I started saying I love you more often. Holding hugs a little longer, listening without interrupting. I smiled at strangers. I prayed without words. I forgave people I swore I never could. I chose peace over pride. Even my home changed. I filled it with music and light. I planted a garden, something I never thought I'd do. Watching things grow from the earth reminded me that beauty comes from the dirt, from the mess, from the breaking open. I also became more sensitive to the pain in others. I could walk into a room and feel when someone was aching, even if they were smiling. It was like I could hear silent cries, and instead of turning away or feeling overwhelmed, I leaned in. I asked deeper questions. I stayed longer. I offered presence instead of platitudes, because now I know it's not about fixing people. It's about being with them in their pain, just like Jesus was with me. That's the real transformation. I used to think life was about avoiding suffering, chasing comfort. Now I know. The holiest things grow in the soil of sorrow. That's where compassion is born. That's where connection lives. And that's where our purpose often finds us. If you're grieving right now, if your heart is heavy or your faith is fractured, I want you to know there is still light. Not in the denial of your pain, but inside it. The path to peace isn't around the grief. It's through it. But you won't walk it alone. The same presence that met me on the other side, He's with you too. Even now. Even in the quiet. especially in the quiet. So live. Don't just exist. Take the trip. Make the call. Forgive the unforgivable. Love recklessly. Laugh loudly. Cry deeply. And above all, hope boldly, because death is not the end. It never was. After I began sharing my experience, first in small ways, then slowly with more courage, I realized something I never expected. I wasn't the only one. At first, I thought my story was strange, unique, even unbelievable. I feared judgment, whispers, people calling it a coping mechanism or a fantasy spun by grief. But as I began speaking, something incredible happened. Others began speaking too. Messages started pouring in. Emails, letters, comments. People from every background. Mothers, widowers, veterans, nurses, pastors, atheists. People from countries I've never been to, speaking in broken English or perfect prose, all saying the same thing. I thought I was alone, but your story reminded me I'm not. Some had experienced near-death events of their own. Others hadn't, but still felt like their hearts had crossed into something spiritual through dreams, visitations, unexplainable peace in moments of despair. Some had lost children. Others had lost spouses, siblings, best friends, and they all carried one thing: longing. Not just for answers, but for connection. For someone to say, "I see you. I understand." That's when I realized the purpose wasn't just to tell a story. It was to create a space, a sanctuary for the brokenhearted, a place where questions were welcomed, not silenced, where doubt wasn't weakness, but a doorway, where faith wasn't forced, but discovered gently, like light breaking through a storm. So I started responding, one message at a time, each name a sacred thread in the larger tapestry, each story a soul looking for home. And over time, that space became a community, not just an audience, but a family. People began sharing their dreams, their signs, their moments when heaven brushed up against earth. They told me about feathers falling where they shouldn't, about songs playing at just the right time, about children saying things they couldn't possibly know. And through it all, the same themes repeated: love, connection, and an undeniable presence guiding them. I've heard from a mother whose son appeared to her in a dream, telling her, "I'm still laughing with you." From a father who saw his daughter in a vision after a car accident, whispering, "It's okay, Daddy. I'm safe now." From an elderly woman who'd lost her husband and felt his hand holding hers during surgery, though no one was there. These aren't just stories. These are testimonies of the soul, each one a thread in something much bigger, something sacred. And I believe with all my heart that we are being called into this community not by accident, but by design, by divine appointment. We are lights, carriers of hope, bearers of truth that love never dies, that souls don't vanish, and that grief, when held together, becomes something holy. So if you're reading or listening now, know this: you are not alone. Not in your pain, not in your doubts, not in your questions. You are part of this beautiful, wounded, healing family. You are seen, you are heard, and yes, you are still deeply loved, even if you don't feel it yet, even if your world still feels dark, even if all you have is one tiny flicker of hope left in you. That's enough. Because in the darkest of nights, it only takes one light to begin pushing back the shadows. That's what this channel, this space, this story is really about. Not proving anything, not convincing anyone, just shining, honestly, gently, consistently, until others feel safe enough to shine too. I believe we are all connected for a reason. Every person who stumbles across this story, every viewer who watches through tears, every soul who lingers in the comments, you matter. You're part of something now, something divine. And if you felt a shift in your heart, a tear in your eye, or a warmth that you can't explain, that's not just coincidence. That's spirit. That's love trying to reach you. So please, don't stay silent. Leave a comment. Share your story. Subscribe so you never feel like you're walking this path alone again. Because together, we are stronger, brighter, and closer to heaven than we think. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are family. I never expected to become a storyteller of the afterlife. I never asked to walk through the fire of loss, or to come back with words that still feel too sacred for ordinary speech. But this is the road I was given. And now, I see it was never about death at all. It was always about love. That's the final message. The truest thing I brought back from beyond the veil. Not a warning, not a prophecy of doom, but a truth so deep, so eternal. It echoes through every part of me, every day since. Love never dies. It doesn't fade with time. It doesn't disappear when the body stops breathing. It doesn't end at the grave. If anything, it begins there. I used to think grief was the price we pay for love. But now, I believe grief is the echo of love still active, still reaching, still holding. It's love with nowhere to go. Or so we think. But love does go somewhere. It becomes our connection to heaven, to them, to God, to who we really are. I know now that Emily didn't leave me. She simply stepped into a room I couldn't see yet. She's with me when I speak her name, when I sit quietly and feel the warmth settle over my shoulders, when I light that candle at night and whisper, "Thank you for choosing me to be your mom." She's not gone. She's home. And one day, I'll be there too. But until that day comes, I've made it my mission to carry this message. To you. To anyone who's grieving, who's doubting, who's just barely holding on. I know how dark it gets. I know what it's like to scream into the silence and beg for a sign. I know the fear of forgetting their voice, the ache of smelling their clothes, the guilt of laughing again when they aren't here to laugh with you. I've lived it. And I came back to tell you, they're okay. You will be okay. And this world, though heavy, broken, and aching, is still laced with light. You've seen it too, haven't you? The moments that make no sense unless love is guiding them. The song that plays at just the right moment. The dream that feels more like a visit than imagination. The word you needed to hear, arriving through a stranger's voice. That's love speaking. That's heaven reaching. That's proof you're not alone. I don't pretend to understand everything. There are still days I miss her so much it hurts to breathe. But the pain is no longer my prison. It's my passage. It reminds me I loved deeply and was loved in return. And that's what I want for you. Not just to hear this story, but to feel your own heart begin to remember. To believe again that what you feel deep inside is real. That the people you've lost are not lost at all. That the love you gave wasn't wasted. That the emptiness you carry is actually holy ground. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not too far gone. You are being held, even now, by the same presence who held me in my darkest hour. And so, if you take anything from this journey, let it be this. Love never dies. It lives in every tear you cry, in every memory that won't fade, in every time your heart aches for what once was. That ache? That's love's echo. That's eternity whispering, "We're not done yet." One day, you will see them again. One day, you will understand why it had to be this way. One day, all the pieces will come together. But until that day, live. Love fiercely, hope shamelessly. Speak their name often. Keep your heart soft. And remember, heaven is closer than you think. If this story has touched you, please, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Leave a comment. Subscribe and join our family of souls walking through the mystery together. Your presence here matters more than you know. This isn't goodbye. This is the beginning of something sacred. Because love, real love, never ends. It just keeps going. Forever.